Yeah, revolutionary greetings, comrades, and welcome to our study group where we do our book reading. Actually, this initiative is a long call by various Pan-Africans for us to create a space where we can actually read books. You know, we have books, and some of us engage in reading books, but just having a collective group of people who come to read books is what pushed us to have this class in place. We actually have various online platforms for African book clubs. There's a virtual library led by Brother Hegel, who's joining us shortly. And we, from the Consciousness Study Group, then founded another Pan-African library. Just to give a brief for you, actually, let me show you a bit of what we are doing in the Pan-African library from the Consciousness Study Group. We decided to create a Pan-African library where we share a soft copy book. So we upload soft copy books and then share them on a Telegram channel. We was sharing them on our WhatsApp, but due to the advantages of Telegram over WhatsApp, we decided to move to Telegram. So for the last, I think 1 month, when we started Telegram, we have been able now to transfer most of the soft copy books we had to the Telegram. So for example, this is the Telegram group we are having. And if you can see, it's called the CSG Pan-African Library. So like now I was searching within the library, the books for Dr. Iti, this book we are reading. And you see by putting the name Dr. Iti, I'm getting almost 14 books that are in a library that are related to Dr. Iti. Some of them are repeated because some books have been shared twice or thrice. But these are the books that are available on our Pan-African library. So it's very easy for you. If you come here, you go to the Telegram, you just click the name, you search the name of the person you want to read about, and then the books of that person will all come through. And then you can be able to pick the book you want. So this is an initiative we started of sharing the books. And for the last 1 month, we have been able to upload 6,578 books. Some of them are actually repeated books, so we might be having around 6,000 books, with either 400 or 500 being repeated twice or thrice. So we are having almost 6,000 books, soft copy books, that are available in this Pan-African library. And these are soft copy books. Basically, most of these books are written by Africans or Black authors, and they are all about either in relation to Africa, or they are all about any other item in the Pan-African space. So there are 6,000 of them so far. We have a hard drive as well, so we have the hard copy of these books. So if you come to this library, we have books. For example, if you go to Kwame Nkrumah, you just search Kwame Nkrumah, you'll see all the books of Kwame Nkrumah here. We have 66 documents in regards to Kwame Nkrumah. Some are repeated books, some are articles, some have been shared twice or thrice, but all these are initiatives that we are putting on the Pan-African initiative to have a library on this. So this reading club we are having is actually a platform that is supposed to help us now as a collective group read some of the books that we have. And the process of reading also share some of our thinking in regards to those books. So it's very important that we come together as we have been doing for the last almost 4 months and read a book and discuss. Our intention initially was to ensure that as many Pan-Africans could join us, so that we could have maybe 100 of Pan-Africans here reading the book together and trying to, it's not even to discuss so much, but at least reading together, because we get to learn together what's going on. So that's why we started this Sunday class. But of course, apart from this, we have a Thursday class where we read Consciousness Study Group, where we read Consciousness book by Kwame Nkrumah. But that one is very intense because we only read a paragraph, and we have to discuss that paragraph for 2 hours. We have been doing that for the last 3 years, every day, every Thursday without a fail. And that's the main class we are having. Then you have a Saturday class where we discuss the unification of Africa, general topics, inviting various people to discuss that. And we have a Tuesday class where I teach Swahili to the Pan-Africans. So these are the initiatives we are doing, and we look forward to, if possible, we could have so many Pan-Africans joining this library, joining this reading club, so that we could read together. Having said that, once again, permit me to invite and welcome all of you. Sir Windhoek, Brother Bernard, Brother Hegel, and one of our only sister in the platform, Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua, happy Mother's Day, and thank you for what you're doing. The task to liberate the continent is on the mothers, because the mothers can then show the next generation what is needed. They can preach unification to the upcoming generation, that can preach liberation, and it's the mothers that can help us build a generation that will liberate the continent. So we thank you, Sister Tapua, and all sisters who always join the CSG, from Sister Ida, Sister Myra, Sister Chisomo, and all other sisters we have, and many sisters in the continent or outside the continent who really struggle to keep the generation and the black society keep moving. We really appreciate you. So happy Mother's Day to you, Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua, you have to say something?
Thank you very much. Not at the moment, but thank you. It's an honor.
You're welcome.
To be a mother.
You're welcome. They say mothers are the creators today, because we have been discussing another platform. Who is the creator? Of course, you are the Almighty God back then, but now who creates me? Who creates the next generation, if not the mother? So,
Father.
no, the father will do what he does, but who will bring about the generation? Who makes the baby have the ears, the eyes, the organs? In whose womb are all those things created? So it's the womb of the mother. So it means the mother or the woman is actually the creator who we have today. Because without them, the nose cannot be formed anywhere. The eyes cannot be formed anywhere. The shape of a body, the organs of a child's body will not be formed anywhere apart from the womb of the mother. So we really appreciate them for what they're doing. Now, in our last class, we looked a bit on various issues. We even read the very important summary here. But we read about the real causes of despotism. So we learned about, as the last part of it, that what caused despotism is the unitary system of government, the Western-style democracy, or multi-party democracy, the means and rich, and then other factors such as Cold War, foreign aids. So influence from the foreign aids or the international bodies, issues to do with means and rich, this multi-party democracy of the West, and central government system are part of the reasons that then cause despotism. So we did that, and today now we are going to look at indigenous versus Western institutions. So we intend to read this part of it's called autonomous democracy, then markets, then you're going to read again about peasant capitalism, including the economic unit, the scale, the profit, the institution and infrastructural support, the use of capital goods, and then we are probably going to end with we might end with that, and if time allows we can go to the informal sector. So as usual, once again, feel most welcome. Professor Hegel Marsh, welcome. It's been a long time. You're one of the brains behind this class, but you have not been able to be fully with us, I know, because of some few duties that you also handle. But feel most welcome, Professor Hegel. Now, as usual, who will read for us?
Sister Tapua.
I will. I'm the appointed reader.
Yes, Sister Tapua, all eyes are pointing to you.
Okay, I will read, but I'm having challenges. I hope I won't drop out. I was dropping out a few minutes ago. Right. Can I start?
Yeah, please start.
Okay. Indigenous versus Western institutions. Autonomous democracy. It is important to draw distinctions between indigenous and Western institutions. There are different forms and different varieties of democracy. Again, the absence of one particular form does not imply the non-existence of the institution. The absence of voting does not mean that despotism is the norm for the people of the developing world. In traditional systems, rulers are chosen. Prior to the advent of colonialism, governance in many tribal or traditional societies entailed consultation and decision-making by consensus, a different form of democracy. Markets. The market is another institution that was not invented by the West. Markets evolved naturally as traders met at a designated spot, often where two bush paths crossed to exchange goods. As business blogger Christopher Locke describes it, traders return from far seas with spices, skills, and precious magical stones. Caravans arrived across burning deserts, bringing dates and figs, snakes, parrots, monkeys, strange music, stranger tales. The marketplace was the heart of the city, the canal, the hub, the ophalos. In the days of barter, goods were exchanged directly for other goods. This required searching for someone who had what one wanted and also wanted what one had, a double coincidence of wants, a cumbersome and time-consuming process. A marketplace emerged to save time and effort, a central place where anyone with anything to barter could go. Then, I'm lost, sorry.
Then
I am lost. Help. Okay, thank you. Right. Then at the marketplace, people made an important discovery. Certain commodities that were in greater demand, say salt, were trading more readily than others. So instead of trading a goat directly for bread, which might be difficult, one traded the goat for salt and then later the salt for bread. The salt then served as a medium of exchange and therefore money. It was also a store of value, since the value of the goat could be stored in the salt and spent later, exchanged for bread the next day or week. The function of money is to serve as a medium of exchange and a store of value. Prior to contact with European colonialists, the people in the third world used various commodities as money: amber, beads, cowries, drums, eggs, feathers, gongs, horse, ivory, jade, kettles, leather, mats, nails, oxen, quartz, rice, thimbles, vodka, wampum, yams, and zapozats, decorated axes in exchange to salt. In many traditional societies, the shade of a big tree was good enough to serve as a marketplace. Hundreds of examples can be given from Asia through to the Middle East, bazaars, to Africa, village markets, to Latin America. The European colonialists introduced into these sort of societies supermarkets, and malls, which are just different forms of the same institution, the market. Similarly, the Europeans introduced paper currency, which, of course, is more efficient than salt when purchasing a cow. But that does not mean the Europeans invented the institution of money or the market. Peasant, are we reading peasant capitalism?
Yes, let's finish the reading.
We're reading, am I continuing? Sorry.
Yeah, please continue. Let's finish the reading, then we'll just come out for discussion.
All right. Okay. Peasant capitalism. The West and Europeans did not invent the institution of capitalism either. Again, there are different forms of it. Capitalism is an economic system in which private actors, rather than a central government bureau, solve the economic problem of what to produce, how much, and for whom. Private actors employ resources, land, labor, capital, and their own entrepreneurship to produce goods and services, which are then sold on the market for profit. Markets and profit are thus essential elements of capitalism. As we have seen above, markets were ubiquitous in traditional societies in developing countries. So too was the notion of profit, a term known in virtually all peasant societies and for which there were hundreds of local terms. The Ashanti of Ghana, for example, call it mfaso, whilst the Ga call it senamo. Moreover, the mode of production in peasant, non-feudal societies was essentially capitalist. However, there are 5 notable differences between peasant capitalism and Western capitalism. Number 1, the economic unit. Whereas in the West, the basic economic and the social unit is the individual. In peasant societies, it is the collective. The extended family is a corporate unit and owns the means of production, whereas an American individual may set out to start a business on his or her own. In Africa, the extended family may do so. Number 2, the scale. Whereas Western capitalism can produce vast quantities of goods and services, the scale is brutally limited under peasant capitalism. 3, profit. Whereas under Western capitalism, profit is appropriated by the owners of the business. In peasant societies, the profit is shared amongst family members or with workers. Institutional and infrastructural support, point number 4. Whereas the American businessmen may pick up the phone and call potential investors or float the market on the stock exchange, a peasant businessman lacks these facilities. 5, the use of capital goods. Capital, in contrast to popular usage, is not money, as in business capital. It is defined in economics as anything that is not wanted for its own sake, but is desired in the production of further goods. For example, a tool, equipment, a piece of machinery, and even a fishing net are all capital goods. The use of capital goods is very productive and efficient. Catching fish with a fishing net is more efficient than doing so with bare hands. In peasant economies, the amount of capital goods is limited, consisting of simple tools such as hoes, machetes, dugout canoes, etc. In the West, there are large quantities of capital goods, and thus Western capitalism and services. In peasant
Sister Tapua, I think your network is
on the head, operating a blame. Peasant families acting as corporate units employ, I need to scroll up. Hello? Oh yes, thank you. Okay. Regardless of these differences, the mode of operating a business is essentially the same. Peasant families acting as corporate units employ their own resources to plant certain crops on their land. They do so of their own volition, not at the behest of their chiefs or traditional leaders. The harvest is used to feed their families, and the surplus is sold on market. Profit made is used to improve their living conditions and send gifted children to school. These peasant farmers are free enterprisers. If the cultivation of cotton is unprofitable, they switch to other crops. Sculptors of various kinds, hunters, fishermen, woodsmen, craftsmen, food vendors, and so forth are also free enterprises. They all engage in their various economic activities of their own volition. They do not rely on the tribal or traditional government for sustenance. They sustain themselves from profit made from their enterprise. They do not operate their businesses for altruistic reasons. Thousands of examples can be given from history in Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. There were also cottage industries before contact with the West. Metalware, pottery, glass, ironworking, gold, silver, silver mining, basketry, leatherworks, woodwork, clothing, and others. Arab merchants who drove long caravans across Asia and the Sahara in the days of Marco Polo were free enterprises. The city of Hanoi, Vietnam, has a tree-shaded ancient quarter with 36 narrow streets, each named after the guild that once controlled it. Pan Street, China Bowl Street, Sweet Potato Street, Commercial Hat Street, Blacksmith Street, etc. The New York Times safe maiden reports. There are still jewelry shops on Silver Street, sweets and pastry shops on Sugar Street, votive papers and toys on Votive Paper Street, and pots and pans on Tin Street. Traders have done business on this since the 9th century, according to Nguyen van Voet, a leading historian of Hanoi. The 36 guilds established themselves at the start of the 19th century. The outside world first made an impact when traders began arriving from Europe and other parts of Asia, bringing with them gemstones, telescopes, clocks, and weapons. They took home sugar, silk, spices, precious wood, rice, and ceramics. As Edward Wong wrote in the New York Times, Centuries ago, the term silk was synonymous with China, and the town most associated with it was Jili. Since the climate and water were ideal for sericulture, every home in Jili once had hand tools that the residents used to spin silk thread. In the Qing dynasty, founded in the 17th century, Jili silk was used to fashion the clothing of the imperial court of Beijing and of the emperor himself. In 1851, at the London Great Exhibition, a Chinese businessman displayed Jili silk. It won prizes handed out by Queen Victoria and was later presented to her as a birthday gift. After the industry boomed with the opening of Shanghai to foreign companies, the silk trading houses of four families, nicknamed the Four Elephants, became dominant in the area. Their combined wealth supposedly equaled the annual tax revenue that the Qing rulers collected from all of China. The trading families built lavish mansions. One such home in Nexan still stands, built by Zhang Shiming between 1899 and 1905. It had a ballroom and held 600,000 volumes of books, one of the most extensive collections during the Qing dynasty. This was just pure peasant capitalism. What often limited the scope were access to land, business, or startup capital, and foreign competition. But the peasants coped in various innovative ways. Starting any business under capitalism requires startup capital, which was scarce in indigenous societies. Banks during the colonial era refused to lend to peasants who lacked collateral. So the peasants turned to two traditional sources of finance. One was the family pot, a fund maintained by each extended family into which members made contributions according to their means. Members could borrow from this fund to establish a business. The second source of finance was a revolving credit scheme that was and still is widespread across the developing world. In Africa, it was called susu in Ghana, a susu, or chilembe in Cameroon, or stockdale in South Africa. Elsewhere in the developing world, there was hui in China, pasanok,
Sister Tapua?
gamaya in Egypt, hagbag in Somalia, zitek in Mozambique, arisan in Indonesia, paluwagan in the Philippines, chit fund in India and Sri Lanka, Piahui in Thailand, and Ko in Japan. Typically, a group of, for example, 10 people would contribute $100 towards the fund. When it reached a certain amount, say 1,000, it was handed over to the members in turn. For many businesses in the traditional and informal sector, the loan club was their primary source of capital. If the same Tuni scheme were organized in the United States, it would be called a credit union. A credit union is simply an association of individuals who pool their savings together to lend only to themselves, the members. In commerce, middlemen or agents are able to secure trade credit solely on the basis of trust. A producer or an importer advances some goods to a trader for repayment to be made in a few months in a medium acceptable to the supplier. In 19th century Senegal, for example, 30 barrels of flour were payable in 4 months. Bars of iron had 5 months credit in the 19th century. In West Africa, much of the palm oil trade operated on trust, a credit system. The trust system works because of the extended family system. Default could bring shame to one's clan, and besides, the clan could be held liable. If a profitable opportunity presents itself, peasant traders exploited it. Profit made is private property. It is for the traders to keep, not for the chiefs or rulers to expropriate. What peasants do with their profit is for them to decide. The traditional practice was to share it. Under the Abusa scheme, devised by the cocoa farmers of Ghana at the beginning of the 20th century, net proceeds or profit was divided into thirds. 1/3 goes to the owner of the farm, another third goes to the hired laborers, and the remaining third is set aside for farm maintenance and expansion. Under the less common Abunu system of Ghana's market traders, profits were shared equally between the owner and the workers. Variants of this profit-sharing scheme have been extended beyond agriculture to commerce and fishing. Of particular note are the women traders of West Africa who have dominated market activity for centuries. They are particularly adept at price discrimination, charging different prices to different customers for the same commodity. One bargains with them to secure the best price, but they're skillful in extracting the highest price from most customers. They use profits from their market activity not only to send their children to school, but also to fund the struggle for independence from colonial rule in the 1950s. In fact, the mothers of many of the liberation heroes, such as Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and Nelson Mandela of South Africa, were market women.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now that is the contribution of women to the liberation.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah, that's why we are looking forward to the this year's Africa Liberation Day be about women, because you see, the mother of Nkrumah and the mother of Mandela were market women. So it means it's their effort and their struggle that made them be who they are. But yes, we have read this. It's been a long reading. I intended it to be like that. So we've discussed issues of the origin of money, the capitalist, the peasants system. All these are just thoughts of the writer. And therefore, any member is allowed to share in their thinking and what they see about this. So we will start. You either want to start sharing your thinking from what was on democracy, on market, or anything else you want to point out. So feel free to come first. Anybody want to say something? Yeah, Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question on the subtitle of this section. That word I couldn't read, the auto something democracy. What's that?
It was very hard for me as well. And because of that, permit me just to go straight to the definition on Google to get,
Yes, thank you.
to get exact definition so that we... Okay, let me just go there.
Autochthonous.
Okay, that's all right. Autochthonous, autochthonous, autochthonous.
Autochthonous, Sister Tapua.
Autochthonous.
Yes.
Auto.
It's very
I
interesting.
know what auto means, but not autonomous.
Auto means car.
Now, I'm sharing the Oxford Constitution,
Okay.
and it's called Otto Thomas Constitution. And basically, I'll go back a bit to read the definition of this. But they say that autochthony refers to the fact that a constitution is legally speaking homegrown or rooted
Okay.
in soil. So
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at homegrown democracy.
Indigenous democracy.
Yeah, probably indigenous democracy at this particular moment.
Democracy.
Yeah, but I think that's basically what it tries to define. But again, still Google is telling us that.
All right.
Let me first of all pronounce it.
Autochthonous.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so autochthonous is of an inhabitant of a place, is indigenous. That is it. It's native.
Yeah.
It's aboriginal. It's ancient. So all that is the definition.
All right.
So
Okay, thank you.
welcome. So let's get back to the book again and see what it says. Yes, you're back. Anybody want to say something? Feel free. Just feel free to unmute yourself and speak on anything of all that you have read, anything you want to speak of.
I think I'll come in and comment on how I've lived the
Okay.
experience. Hello? Is that all right?
Go ahead, Sister Tapua.
All right, thank you. No, I'm just saying I'll come in and speak on my lived experience of Stockfell kind of grouping that a lot of women and friends and get do to support each other financially. It kind of makes so much sense because of the inaccessibility of the formal sector, because when you apply for a bank loan, in certain instances, you don't have the collateral. So this has been a way of survival for indigenous women. Yeah, yeah. I kind of had an interesting experience because when I was in the UK, we so used to the Stockfell type of women grouping together and saving, and we then are used to deposit money for the group into a bank and then use the banking system. So we're trying to bridge between the old system where we're keeping the money at home and it's revolving, and because of security, we wanted to put it into a bank, and the banks couldn't understand what we wanted to do. And they were kind of asking, where's your constitution? Where's your this and that? And we kind of gave up and started just doing it outside, the formal sector. That's something I would like to just share, that it lives on.
Yeah, it's an experience also in Kenya. Kenya is known for two ideas. One is called Harambe system, where people do the contributions. So initially during the independence, in fact, it was one of the independent philosophy championed by the founding president Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, who then mobilized people to do what you call Harambe. Because you see, it's believed that when the white men left their former colonial states, not left fully, but of course they left physically, with some of their agents left here as neo-colonial puppets. But when they left, they most of the economy actually stumbled. because the African nations were not prepared to take off. They had not trained even enough teachers, enough doctors to take over from the whites who were doctors or teachers, you see. And also, most of the businesses also went down because they were then dominated by the whites. Development or even cash flow in some of the founding countries was very hard. In fact, the founding fathers of some of the African states really struggle a lot to even stabilize those countries because of the whites decided to withdraw their money that was in the bank, that was in circulation, and all those things. So there was not even enough money for even development moving forward. So money even to build schools, to build hospitals. So the founding president Jomo Kenyatta came up with the philosophy or the spirit of Harambee, which is known as the collective contribution. So people started to collect and contribute to actually build schools. People themselves removed their salaries to contribute so that we can have a school in our village, a hospital or a clinic in our village. So that is the spirit of Harambee. And Harambee then moved to an extent that even up to date it is still there. There could be a public event like a fundraising. That's what now, of course, is called fundraising. So a community could have a fundraiser, which is Harambee in Swahili. And people come in, the community contribute, and other members contribute to help the community build their schools. Those schools were actually called community-owned schools. In some of the country, they are still existing up today. We call them DBs, the District Board Education, but they were basically community-owned schools because the community built them. That spirit has continued up to date in what now English call a merry-go-round, or merry-go-round, which is now basically people still contribute. They donate what you call on a monthly basis, maybe, and then when it comes to on the end of the month, women could then come. Basically, women are good in this. So instead of giving you money, they use the money they have contributed to buy you house equipment. So they buy you the basins, they buy you the dishes, they buy you the plates, they buy you the seats. So instead of bringing money, they bring what you need in the family. The basic items. They have been doing that for a period of time. And some continue doing it. Today it has now advanced to where these groups have now moved to what you call like a cooperative. And those cooperatives are very common also in Kenya. And in fact, some of the banks that are big banks in Kenya started as cooperatives. So cooperatives that then moved to what you call a SACCO. So we have what you call a SACCO. So members could contribute together, like what you are saying, Sister Tapua, and then they deposit their money. And even today now they are contributing, and then they buy for each other land. So if you are 20 of us in the city of Nairobi, we'll be contributing on basis, and maybe after 6 months, the money we collect will go buy for Sister Tapua land in Nairobi. Then our best member will buy for Sawindok land. So you realize after 3 years or 4 years, everybody has a land in Nairobi. They moved like that to an extent that now they own what you call the public transport sector, what you call the public vehicles. So most of public vehicles in Kenya today have a name called SACCO. SACCO is more of like the informal arrangement of many people who come together to donate. So they have the biggest vehicles flights. Like one of the notorious or very big SACCO in the Nairobi city today is called Super Metro. So Super Metro has a 33-seater vehicles, over almost 2,000 in the city of Nairobi alone. 2,000. So members could buy the vehicle, put in that SACCO, and the SACCO then manage for you the vehicle, get you the profit from the every day or a daily basis. So those initiatives started from small initiatives up to big initiatives. And sometimes back when we had this discussion, I told somebody, that's us. That's our way of living. It's not something new. Remember, even when you had even maybe burials, or when somebody actually died in our community, members could come to help. Even some could come to help split the firewood. Some will come to help to do the some will donate even some maize flour. Some will donate even a goat. Some could even help to cook. Some will help to fetch water. Some, even when you're building your house, some could come to help you just make the house with no payment. It was who you are. It is us. The ability of us to cooperate, to trade within ourselves, even without currency, is who we are. That is us. So that's the only what I also wanted to highlight on what you are saying as well, Sister Tapua.
Mm.
Yes. Well, Bernard, I see your hand is up. Bernard, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, Sister Tapua, there's one word that I just to help you. It's in Fasuo. Though they written it in Faso, but it's pronounced in Fasuo. Yeah, and the other one you pronounce it very well, Susu. Yes. On the
Thank you.
market, I've done the work. Something I want to publish it as a book, but it is just to give significance to these existing African markets, which, as far as 2008, during this global crunch, in fact, Africa was saved because of these markets, you see. So, was it last year? I've been studying it for a long time. And wherever I go, I try to visit that type of market in places. You see, recently I was in Blantyre, and I tried to go to that market, Blantyre market, to look at how the places and activities, and I mean, it's exciting to be there. So the, the whole thing what that we face is with this mall and the supermarkets, but still, I think these I mean, European ones or Western type of markets haven't been able to eradicate our African markets, and they are still actually vibrant. So I have done the work, which maybe, Doc, I will see you later, for you also to look at it for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Bernard. You've also reminded me, thank you very much. I will be looking forward to that. You've also reminded me something that we do in our market. I think when I was
Uh-huh.
young, I could be taken to, we have a cattle market. A cattle market could take place on every Wednesday in the village there. So there's a market, and each market will have the day of selling cattle. So what you do, you go with your cow to the market. You don't go with an intention to actually get money or sell it, but you go to exchange it. We are like exchanging it. So you go with the cow and you get somebody who has some goats. So you can then exchange and come back home with goats. You went to the cow, you never came back with money, you came back with goats. And when goats stay for a period of time and then they give birth, you go with another goat again. So that's how we could even be able to multiply the number of the cattle we had in the village. And we could walk for a distance. Of course, sometimes we could go for money. When money was needed, for example, maybe when somebody's sick, and in the current setup, then we cannot be able to afford the hospital bills. What you could do, then you take a cow to the market, and then they buy the cow to give you money. Then that money you'll go use it to the hospital. So to us, money was only necessary when it is actually so necessary. But when it is not so necessary, we didn't need it. You see? So the Western system that now introduced that for you to go to the hospital now you'll have to pay with money. And I think this is one of the things that I've been championing. And maybe if God gives me ability to be the president of Kenya, as I'm looking forward to, then I'll have to allow the introduction back of what we had, the capital, if, for example, if I know it happened in Zimbabwe sometimes, but I got it in news. If a parent is
Yes.
if a parent is having a cow, like I remember when I was in my form 4, having come from a poor family, I was not able to finish my form 4 school fees. I was the head boy of the school, so I was sent out for 1 month without being in school, and that was second term, moving to the third term. Now, what happened is that when I went home, my dad didn't have anything, but we had some what you call eucalyptus trees, very big one. So what we did with my dad is that we went to look for we started to split the firewood. Then we hired a cart. Then I could put the firewood in a cart and take it to the school myself so that the kitchen could use the firewood and they will write for me an equivalent sum of the firewood I took to school that was equivalent to the school fee arrears. In fact, by that time, it was not even so expensive because I was having a school fee arrears of 6,000. 6,000 Kenya shillings is something equivalent to $30. In fact, not $30, $40 or 50. But I couldn't pay that $50 for my school fee. So the school allowed me to go for a cart. I put the firewood in a cart. So I actually supplied 6 carts of firewood, full of firewood. And that's how they actually paid for my school fee. It happened. That was not long ago. That was around 2012, 2011, 2012, 2013. So it is still possible that we need to introduce the commodity versus service or commodity to commodity business. For example, why should a woman fail to cook her food maybe because she lacks her cooking oil, when in the house she has almost 2 sacks of maize? Why can't she not be allowed to take even 1 kilogram or 2 kilogram of maize to the next shop so that they can give her the cooking oil she needs? Then the file and the whole family sleep without food. And you ask yourself, they'll say we are poor. You are poor because you don't have the fiat currency, paper thing, but you have a land. So what is the value of your land then? Why don't you even validate your land in terms of their currency to show who you are or your net worth? But people say you're poor. We are not poor. Anybody who has a land, even if you equate it today, the value of that land is in the currency is a lot. So those are also a few things that I wanted to talk about. But let me give the floor first of all. Bernard, finish first.
Yes,
Bernard.
Doc, you see, this is, I have 2 points to make, but coming to what you just said, you see, I contested why World Bank would say that, people in Africa live on $1 a day. But this person who is living on $1, he's got a land, he's got cows, he's got goats, he's got chicken that even the person living in the city doesn't have. But then you calling that person a poor person. And the person in the city who is just living in let's say, a flat, doesn't have all these things, is supposed to be living better. You see, so I think these are things that we have to raise and correct the perception from the West that I don't know why they try to play down on those things, whether to make us feel that we don't have anything or whatever it is. I think, and then academics also have to challenge some of these things. The next thing is the revenue from these markets. I know that this is just a piece of work, so he never went into more detail. But one market like Techima market, in fact, it has made that town, which now maybe should be a city, to be very rich, because they are able to take revenue, and the revenue are shared between the traditional authorities and then the local government in that area. You see, so both sides benefit from the market. And then where I live, also I work in northern Ghana, Boko. Now these days there's a conflict there, but Boko became one of even the top rich place in the north because of these markets. You see, we have traders coming from Burkina, traders coming from Niger, even as far as Nigeria, northern Nigeria, Togo, and then some coming from the portion of Ghana also. They come to Boko to exchange a whole lot of goods, goods like farm goods and other things. You see, but what we see is that we don't talk too much. They are there vibrant, but not much is actually said about them. Maybe there may be pieces of articles here and there, but that is why I have said that, look, let me come with something that actually project these markets and then their significance to our local economies, especially. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, comrade. I think even as a startup want to come in, you see the fifth element on the use of capital goods. They say that capital, in contrast to popular usage, is not money, as in business capital. It is defined in economics as anything that is not wanted for its own sake, but is desired in the production for further goods. For example, a tool, an equipment, a piece of land, a machinery, a fishing net, that's a capital. You see?
Yeah.
So there's different ways on how you view this. And still coming back to your World Bank definition of poverty, I remember when I read in the article, they said that currently their standard of poverty is anybody who live below $1.5 or $1.3 in a day. They were saying that it was below somebody who lived between $2 in a day. And they realized that was bringing the world population of poverty being high. But again, then they classify a country like Burundi, that 92% of people in Burundi live below $1.5 in a day. Basically, they say that Burundi is a poor state or a poor country. But again, you ask yourself, my father in the village do not use cooking oil today. He doesn't require even salt. And we are close to the lake. So my father, when he want to eat anything, he do eat fish. When I was young, he could take me to the shores of the lake and we could fish for free. We could go back home with the fish. My father can even now boil, and he's actually boiling the fish. Once he boils the fish, he eats the fish. If it's about the vegetables, we use traditional vegetables that we grow in the village. So my father will not go buy the vegetable. It is in the village. If it is about maize, my father will only maybe need money to convert the maize to the maize flour in a portion mill. But without that, in the traditional setup, they could still make the maize flour without the portion mill. So basically, why do you want to say that that person must spend $2 in a day for him to be appeared as a rich person? Well, he doesn't need that $2 in a day. He has the sweet potatoes in the farm. He has the fish in the lake. He has the vegetables wherever he need. So why does he need $2 in a day? But in an economy, we do not have these natural resources. We depend purely on money to survive, like the Western economy. Then they need those dollars. But in an African setup economy, in the villages, you don't necessarily need to have those dollars for you to survive. You don't need to have a currency or fiat currency for you to survive. You have a lot of things you can even eat for months. You can eat right from the cassava. You can eat the sweet potatoes. You can eat so many things. So I think this is very important when you view capital. And another thing that I want us to point ourselves to is how money is being introduced here and the elements discussion about money, that the word money did not introduce money and what was used as a medium of money. For example, the element of salt being used here as a medium. I really look forward for us to comment on that as we continue this conversation. Let me hear first of all what
But Doc, just a moment. You see, if you compare the situation in South Africa in particular, the way people are suffering here, that is the natives. You see, what I have come to realize is that they don't have these types of markets here, and it's all about these supermarkets, which also have few rich people owning all the shops in these supermarkets. You see, last 2 years or 3 years, maybe 4 years, Ramaphosa mentioned that he is going to create these African markets in certain places, but up to now, I haven't seen any sign yet. But so you find that places where these markets are not actually existing, poverty, real poverty, actually is high there. You see, because people don't have any access to exchange goods and other things apart from relying on these supermarkets and the malls for what they want. And if you come here, you will find that the average person who is earning about 3,000 rand, 5,000, would have to use credit and go to the mall, buy where the rich white people are buying on credit. And at the end of the day, just imagine what happened to that person who is competing with somebody who is earning about 50,000, 60,000, and 70,000 going, you see. So I have been, well, I don't know what the role I can play, but there are times I used to post some of these things on my Facebook wall that, look, so long as we don't have real African institutions which actually promote the kind of economy African people can participate. I mean, it's difficult to talk about eradication of poverty. Yeah, let me put my hands down now.
Tapua,
Yeah, Doc. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, brother. Sister Tapua, come in, then Sawindok, and then Hegel Mwash in that order.
Right. I just want to add that there was a time, I mean, Zimbabwe has been in a situation, has been a flux situation with their currency. We had a time when doctors were asking for payment in the form of goats or cattle from their patients because people did not have the banknotes to pay. And they'd organize themselves in such a way that they'd have trucks to go around certain areas picking up the payment. We also have a system which our government is trying to suppress, where toward harvest time, people go to the rural areas with the grocery type items that the farmers need and exchange directly. Maize for cooking oil, and they agree on measures and all. But the government has been trying to stop that because the farmers are not taking their maize to the centralized buying system of government because government has not been paying people on time. And sometimes they take a year or so to pay the farmers and give them money that's been diminished by inflation. We've also had a situation where school fees could be paid by goats and sheep at some point, but that has since fallen off. What we've noticed, as my brother has just been saying, colonial domination and control, particularly in Zimbabwe and Mozambique, was achieved by the introduction of the fiat currency. So when the hard tax was introduced, the men in the family had to go and earn this paper money. So they were used to construct railway lines, roads, and so on, and they couldn't pay it in any other form. And money, like my brother has also said, is the creation of poverty, because they then say whatever else you own is not acknowledged, is not regarded as capital, as we have since learned. And if we look at the industrialization of process in Europe, it created poverty because people were made landless. People were made to feel they didn't have anything else, just like South Africa. And I think the situation in South Africa is almost the same as the situation in Zimbabwe, but I think we've held on to some of the elements of our markets. Because right now, with the unemployment rate in Zimbabwe being 90 to 95, the amount of selling in the street, which has affected big supermarkets, which are closing like anything because they can't compete with the ordinary person in the street. Because the ordinary person in the street is not paying tax, is not paying overheads. They simply sell at the price that they want for that day in order for them to earn a living. So the supermarkets have not been able to cope at all. And the government has tried to put in place ways to tax the markets traders. And it's an uphill battle because one, they don't have a particular venue or a place where they're able to tax them. And of late, there's been a suggestion by our government, which people ridiculed because they want everybody in the country to complete a tax return. Tell us how many goats and cattle you have at the beginning of the year. Tell us how many you have been able to produce, to reproduce. And then they calculate a tax margin for you. It's utter madness, utter madness. And I don't think it will work. I hope it will not work because with the way our economy has gone, it's gone back to peasant type capitalism where the institutions left by the colonialists can cope, absolutely can't cope with what's going on because people are becoming innovative. Government is shocked by the amount of building of homes that's taking
Okay, Sister Tapua, we've lost you.
place in a country that is known to find out where people are getting money from. And if you build a home, you're exposing yourself to tax. So hello.
Okay, yeah, Sister Tapua, we are losing you a bit, but let's go to Sawindok. We'll come back to you, Sister Tapua, when your network stabilizes. Sawindok?
All right.
Yes, greetings again. You see, our governments are the mothers of all evil. Sorry to liken our government to our precious mothers on their day. Like my brother Bernard has said, if you don't have collateral, or what we have land, but then our land is not regarded as collateral. Our governments are to blame because they are not putting the enabling policies in place to help us. They are capitalists just like the West. If they put value on our lands, then their houses will depreciate. And they don't want that to happen. So it's not about the people, it's about them. The same with our traditional or our autonomous barter system, barter trade system. You can't trade butter for maize because of the artificial standards that they have put in place. We have had our own standards and nobody has died from contaminated food, but they are not putting the policies in place for me to trade maize for oil or for me to take a cow to a market and pay my medical bills or whatever. The problem, the evil is the government. We had all our system, well operating systems in place, but where the West has captured our leaders, and our leaders are 100% capitalist, and they have done away with our systems that could sustain us. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Hegel, are you able to speak? Hegel, if you're not able to speak, we'll move to General Nunaki. General Nunaki? General Nunaki, are you able to speak?
Yes, my brother, give thanks. Sorry, man. Blessed family. Yeah, I just came late in this meeting. I was in another meeting, so I really don't want to comment. But maybe I'll comment during the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody want to speak before coming?
Yes, and on Tapua matter in Zimbabwe. First, I think Zimbabwe should humble and go to Ghana and learn, because Ghana has been doing this what we got taxing these traders. Even if you go to a place like Kumasi where I lived, almost every vendor is taxed daily. You pay a small fee, they give you a ticket, which you show to the next person who come and ask you that have you paid your there's a name for it which I've forgotten, but I mean it's something which is well known in Ghana, and it has helped the municipalities. In fact, that is where the municipalities get their money from, the vendors and those in our local markets, you see. And I also see that I wrote an article years back, I think somewhere 2009, but I was very critical about Zimbabwe in a sense that this situation they face, which should make them become very inventive, innovative, you see, and to turn things around in their favor, like Cuba has done. I mean, I can't see a country like Cuba helping a big country like Zimbabwe, which should have more resources than Cuba. You see, but people will say that it's the government, it's the leaders. You see, of course, that is true, but it's a point that we need to look at, that Zimbabwe has all that it takes. You see, all the resources that it can become very innovative, and they can actually stand out on this continent as they used to be before. You see, I think that is one thing I have observed, because I have been there, I have lived there for some time, even just March I was there. But one thing I have seen is, what is the innovation in this country? Of course, these Western institutions are going down. But then, how do you sort of wake up the traditional systems and become creative within our own context, like the Asians have done? You see, this is what has put Asia on the map, not because they copied from the West, but they try to improve what they have to the level that can actually compete with the Western systems and their structures and ways of models of doing things. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. I want us to thank you for your inputs as well. I want us to look at some other few things here. One is on, I was talking about the money and the concept that was said that is not that the white man created the concept of money. I think that's what I want to look at. Yeah, it says that the market is another institution that was not invented by the West. Markets evolve naturally and traders were meeting at designated places. Now, you realize that then the element of money is being brought here. But again, it says that the money is something that must have a store of value. And I think this is what we were discussing sometimes back when somebody from, what do you call it? Was it from Lumi, who did a presentation to us on regards to Lumi itself. The salt then served as a medium of exchange and therefore money. It was also a store of value. Now, you see, it's very important, the fiat currency you're using today, we need to analyze it. Is it really a store of value? What is its value? Equated to what? You're told you have $1,000. Equated to what? What gives it that value of 1,000? Yes, it's a medium of exchange, but what is its value, really? You see? That's very important, and that's why we need to actually have some conversation on that as well. So you see, they say the function of money only act as a medium of exchange and a store of value. So when you say you have $1,000, what is its value? Equated to what? Because $1,000 might have various values in regards to the continent. In Kenya, it might be something. In other countries, it might be something. But again, I think it's a very clarion call to us. And then key things that have been discussed here is that we have also decided to destroy our markets. And you see, when they say the white men all introduced supermarkets and malls, one thing that is not said clearly, which is obvious, that when supermarkets and malls came in, they did not recognize our initial money, which is whatever we are using as a medium of exchange for value. They did not recognize it. But our traditional market recognized our indigenous capital, which is actually what we had. So today, many people in Africa are dying without food, sleeping hungry, just because not that they don't have a capital in the means of what we store in terms of the land, the cow, the whatever we had, but actually they are dying because the supermarket and the mall cannot accept what they have. Not that they have nothing, they have something. But the supermarkets, the malls, and the shops cannot accept it. And this is the worst. I think it's more of the inhumane treatment we are giving our community and societies today. Somebody is sick, is taken to the hospital, and the hospital cannot accept, for example, a cow for the person to be treated. The hospital will tell the person, go sell that cow, bring the money. Why don't you as a hospital take the cow, go sell it? Don't you know the value of that cow? So somebody will die because you will say they never had money, so they are poor people. Well,
The hospital is not a farmer.
yes? Sawindok?
The hospital is not a farmer.
No, even if the hospital is not a farmer, you have something that is equivalent to the service you want. So the hospital will tell you, for example, for us to treat you, we need 5,000 maybe, or we need maybe $1,000. Or maybe they say that we need only $100. Sometimes it's only $100 for even to get a medicine. $100, and at home, if a banana equivalent to $100, why don't they take that bunch of banana and then they go sell it and give you the service? Or even without going sell that banana to translate to something else, why don't they just take the banana and cook it in the hospital for their own means instead of spending money for the same banana? Because at the end of the day, you give them the money, the so-called the fiat currency, they'll go in the market and buy the same banana to eat for their lunch. What nonsense is that?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to come to. Not really to take and sell, but to take the equivalent value. For instance, to take a cow, get the meat processed, and then the meat will be served as meals for other patients.
Yes, so yes, that is it. So instead of chasing me away with my cow, why don't you take my cow, as you're saying, take it to your butcher or slaughterhouse? Then how much are you going, how many kilograms are you going to get out of that? So the money you spent to buy meat for the sick people in the hospital, you have almost a meat for more than your weeks. So you are asking me to give you money, which you're still going to use the money to buy the same cow that I was having, the same meat that I brought to you to the hospitals. And as you're saying, it's very important that we must be conscious that the Pan-African or the so-called colonial states are also perpetrators of this. We might blame the white man in one way of trying to introduce this system of markets that do not recognize our indigenous wealth. But again, the government has to be blamed. Because I think we need to move to the equivalence, as you're saying, Brother Sawindok. And this has been done in the past, leave alone even in government. Us as individuals, we have been using the equivalence. For example, how many times I've given you examples of how maybe we could translate my firewood for my school fee. I can remember another one example when when I was still young, my mom could go to the, because as I've said, we live next to the lakes. So my mom could go and buy what you call the tea. Some people call them what? I call them omena, the small fish. Some people call them daga, the very small fish, very I don't know, call fingerlet or whatever, very small fish. And we could buy them. My mom could come with a whole sack of them. So we will go to the reserves in the villages to sell. But my mom will tell me, if you take it to that shop, tell that owner of the shop to give you 1 kilogram of sugar. So I'll give the person the daga equivalent to maybe 2 kilogram of daga. He will be selling to the people in the villages, but he will not give me money. He'll give me 1 kilogram of sugar that I'll go back home with. We'll go in the same places and we'll come back with maize that we could then go take to the portion mill and get some of our maize flour. That's how we use it. And every day, African citizens actually sometimes share the same. You see, we don't basically necessarily need money in some of our interaction. You see, but the governments need to formalize this so that we can walk away from the so-called poverty or poor people or poor states. Beyond that, because if we remain without formalizing this, what we have, or recognizing our indigenous resources we have, and without opening up our markets as well, as Brother Bernard had said, they killed the normal markets that were existing then. So we don't have a space again to go sell our materials we have, because the supermarket is not the market we knew. So if we could have a weekly market, then we could take some of our things we have there and get their so-called maybe if they even if it's a phone, I'll take my one goat and get a phone so that I could call my uncle in Nairobi or anywhere else. But the markets need to be brought back. The government must start accepting the equivalence. And I think this is one way that we can get ourselves off the man-made or self-made poverty label that's put on us. Because it's very true that we're not poor. In my home alone, we have a big acre of land. And somebody will say we are poor because my dad doesn't spend $2 in a day. If my dad was to sell that land, we'll be richer than somebody who is defining me as a poor person in terms of their fiat currency. Brother Bernard, please come in.
Yes. When we come to, Tapua would probably confirm this. I think some between 2015, if not beyond, in Zimbabwe, in the rural areas, some of the people were using goats and animals to pay for their children's fees. But I think by 2018, they stopped. And it led to a lot of school dropouts, a lot of children unable to go to school again. In fact, I remember one parliamentarian saying that they can't even quantify the number of children who are now sitting at home that time. You see, so this is what the people can afford to do, and that is their capital as we're talking. But then the institution is saying that, okay, it's enough now, we can't take again. Why? So if it can be made a policy, especially in certain areas like the rural areas, where most times they hardly have physical cash, but they have a lot of assets that they can, trade and exchange in the same equivalent value as a cash may represent. You see, so I think we have to be writing about this, and the way we can use to actually lobby these politicians to recognize our own system, and we are dealing with people who are our own people, who are Africans, yet they operate like Europeans. You see. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Anyone, we are left with 10 minutes. Anyone want to contribute to the reading for today? In the next 10 minutes before we come to an end. Anybody? Yes, Sister Tapua?
Yes, thank you. I think following on my brother there, I think when we're making the proposals that we need to and suggestions that we need to write to governments, is to imagine the hospital affecting those ideas, or the schools, because we need to find a way of either supporting a school in a village that's been given so many buckets of maize to pay for fees. How do we operationalize that so that it makes sense, so that the school is able to get the materials that it needs to deliver the education that is needed? Because it really makes sense. It was used before, but I think what we need to remember is the form of government that we are using was meant to extract from us, not to support us. So, like we've always identified already, the type of government that we're using is not meant for us as Africans. Therefore, we need to redress even the way we tax, we collect our taxes, and the way we are expecting people to pay, because that needs our constitutions to change and move away. Because one of the questions that I had was, and I think I flighted it on the chat, Donald Trump is threatening to move away from the US dollar and introduce the crypto type currency. How is that going to affect other economies, and particularly Africa, and particularly Zimbabwe, that is dependent on the US dollar? That's another thing we need to bear in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else?
I think when they shift, Zimbabwe also should shift to the crypto.
Yeah, you see, I wanted to comment on that. These guys are shifting to a platform where they have an advantage. So why don't you also shift to a mode we have an advantage over? Because now they were dominating us using their currency. Now, when we want to catch up with them, they're moving to their crypto.
Yes.
To follow them up again there, where they will also dominate us for a period of time. So basically, I think what brother is saying is, if they are shifting to their crypto, we shift to our barter, because we cannot basically compete with these guys in what they are good at. These guys don't have the resources we have. They don't have the cows we have. They don't have everything. So they are trying to move to what they have. And we are chasing them on what they have as we live what we have. We are becoming another slave in their own system.
You know, if I may come in, Mr. Chair, the situation in Zimbabwe for me has been very peculiar because even with the ZiG currency that was introduced, because we're short of the actual paper money, our money exists on our phones, and people are buying and selling using the numbers that you have on the phone. And I've just been saying, it only takes someone who's able to hack to create money on the phone for the whole system to fold, because it's another world altogether. Because the government is coming in to tax you on the exchange that you're getting engaged in on the phone, and they're making money out of that. And in the process, you're trying to say, should I try and find hard currency and move away from this platform because I'm getting taxed all the time? Because in the markets, because they don't have a way of taxing people directly, sales tax, it's easier and more comfortable for the ordinary person. And I think I remember someone sharing countries that don't tax their own people, but use revenue from minerals and other bigger things that the government can get involved in. I think we also need to maybe find a way of doing that, because sometimes the taxation that we suffer just makes us not want to contribute to the pot, and that becomes a problem too. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I'm the one who shared that research, and in fact, I came across it in certain platform. It was mind blowing that there are countries that do not actually operate with any element of any taxation. But again, I understand where you're coming from, and I think Africans.
But Doc,
Yes.
I think Tapiwa, Zim can go that way, because if Zim actually you are excuse me to say that you are to move Zano, or Zano would actually change its attitude. Zim is a country with resources and things that they can freeze taxation at the basic level, and I don't think government will be affected in terms of having revenue to take care of so many other things. Yeah.
Yeah. What I wanted to say as we are almost coming to this end of this conversation is that whatever Dr. Georgia It is trying to expose to us here is very important. That one, the West never invented money. We had our money, but it was not in this their so-called paper thing. Ours was stored in either salt that had value, because that salt you could buy, you could, for example, exchange your goods with salt, and you know the value of that salt. So the next time you buy something else, it's equivalent to that, you see. Their current currency do not have that value at all. It's not a store of any value. It's just a mode of exchange, you see. And again, we need to understand the society, how we lived, how we raised up the peasant society, how we could contribute, start our capital, run our society is also very important. Just that they are trying to change that to something else. And my interest will be, I think, I want us to imagine this Africa. An Africa whereby, of course, a parent will go to school and take their so-called the sack of maize to pay for the school fee. The school will have maybe 1,000 sacks of maize that have been contributed by the parents as a means for school fees. Now, the teachers want salary, for example. What do they want the money for, the salary? To go pay for house rent? To go buy food? Or maybe to fuel their vehicles and the rest? Which means, if they can even get the equivalent of those sacks of maize, they can still go sell them to the same shop and get whatever they want in an exchange. They'll go with the sacks of maize to the nearest shop. They'll exchange the sack of maize. They'll be given all food items they want for their family. For example, bread, sugar, and everything else. They could take that to a petrol station, and the petrol station could equate it to some gasoline for their vehicle. They could take that to their house owner, and the house owner will take it and equate it to the amount required for the rent. And the house owner, if they like, they can convert that sack of maize to a final capital or fiat currency that they can store in the bank. But the society will move with everybody not lacking a food any day, with everybody not lacking any called basic education or health. Everybody will have health. Everybody will have education. Everybody will have basic that they need. But as long as we block that system, now everybody is competing for that so-called currency. And one is ready to sell his land just to get a paper, so-called currency. A paper that if fire burns today, or if fire breaks today, the fire will burn the whole paper. But no fire has ever burned the land. It can only burn the plant or the produce of the land, but the land will remain there. So it's high time we really need to think about this alternative as a way to us also, as we talk of liberating the continent, Africa liberation, and probably development of Africa, we really need to think about this. That's why these people have realized the value of our land. They come here, pay us, and get our land, and then create a mine. They have a mining ground here. So they're using our land to produce their gold, that they go sell and get the money they want. With us, we forget about our land and go chase after the money they produce from the gold that has come from our land. And our governments are not actually having any shame. They're going to borrow that money, the money that came from the land we had, but we couldn't recognize the value of the land. And I cite them, the Africans recognize the value of their land, alongside the other things we have like the kettles, and all the produce that come from the land. That if we don't take good use of our land, we will remain slaves of people who don't have a proper land to generate anything. And that's why they occupy our land every day. They take us into reserve. That's why they came to Zimbabwe and chased away people, put them in reserves. That's what they did to Kenya. Because they knew we had a land, and a land that had value. But with us, we're not checking on the value, or tapping to the value of our land to produce what we as a people need. Comrade Sokiri Samuel, I see your mic is actually on, and I know you haven't contributed and you came late. Maybe say something as we come to an end of this also as well. Sokiri?
Oh, thank you so much, really. I get the topic of your discussion so much. Remember, some rely on the system of monetary trade. You find in economy, there are two forces which include inflation. That is when there is too much circulation of money, you find employees suffer. And then the opposite to inflation, we have deflation. When money is in scarcity, and then again, there is really a problem. What I appreciate so much in my local society, it is the system of marriage. Because the system of marriage, by then, we have what is used, we have goats, we have animals like the cattle, and then we have arrows and we have spears. So these items are put, you either, if it is 5 animals, and then it is put in also in currency, equivalent amount. So today it has become very expensive, where something which require 1 cow may demand something like 1,500 Uganda shillings. And when you equate it to money exactly, you find that money will buy 2. So mostly people prefer just, instead of paying just cash, and then they pay just in kind, like the animals, like the goats, and it becomes really pretty good and pretty reasonable. But when we rely on really monetary system, it brings much suffering, where you find money become really valueless and it will not satisfy our needs. Thank you so much, really. It is so interesting. However, I apologize for having joined late.
Thank you very much and welcome, brother. Sister Tapua, we are coming to an end, but you have raised a question. Just go ahead, please.
Right. My question is, we've been talking about the value of land, but I think this is a topic for another day. Should we be allowed to sell land? We never sold land in the past because as Africans, we never owned land in our individual capacity. And I do not think we should sell land. Yes, we can produce from the land, but never sell land. Because I feel it's unfair for some people to have title deeds and others to not have title deeds. Who should be born into this world with nowhere to live? I mean, how does that make sense?
Now, thank you, Sister Tapua, for raising that. Of course, we have discussed the issue of land some times back, and it's very clear that land was communally held. It was not individually owned. But in the current setup where we sit today, land is becoming individualistic. But the question I've been asking again, who gave the government the land so that they can give you the title of your land? Who gave them the authority over your land? Because the land belongs to the community, not to the government. So when did the government come in to start saying that, okay, now we are going to give you a title, and if they withdraw that title, it means the land no longer belongs to you? And this came with what you call the Papal Bull and the Doctrine of Discovery of 1452. When whites came to conquer the continent, and they started to put a demarcation to say that now this land belongs to Kenya, it's a territory of Kenya. When those so-called formal governments and central government came in, they took over the land back to them. And therefore now they started to apportion it back to the people. And therefore, actually, as you're saying, the land do not belong to the government. The land belongs to the people, and not as individuals, as a community. But in this current setup today, where you have your land and you have a title showing that is your individual land, then somebody decides to say that their individual land. But when it was communal land, you couldn't, because even the processes to convince the whole community that they give you land is impossible. In our traditional setup, what we did, and I think we read it sometimes back, we could lease people land. So if there are strangers who came over to our territory, we could give them land as a lease. They could stay. When they want to live, they live, and our land remain our land. We could not actually sell them the land. And that's what the white man came with, some tricks to say that we are leasing the land for 99 years. What happened? After they did it for 99 years, leasing the land, like in Kenya, their lease expired in 2013. What could have happened? The land ought to go back to the community, but what happened? The government took the land, and not the government. The people in government bought the land to make it private, the land that was leased from the community. So there's a really a need for that land issue. And we've had some sessions in CSG. I think I'll go to our recording on YouTube and share it again. We've had sessions on land sometimes back, and it's a topic we still need to exploit, because that is where the potential of our development lies. Yes, sister. So then, if all are okay, you will allow me to bring our meeting to an end at this particular juncture. So that next time we will be looking now at other things as well, which then are in regards to informal sectors versus dynamic aging growth today. So the informal sectors in the peasant society. We'll be looking at how the peasant society survives. So that's what we'll be looking in our next class. And then from there, probably we'll have to, we are almost also running with this chapter. And we will be able to move to the next chapter very soon, which will be the mode of operandi of despotic regime. So we'll go back to despotic regime. Remember in chapter 3, the author is taking us back to our traditional setup. Let's understand our history. Even if you are going to fight the current, let's look at our history so that we know who we are and where we are coming from, and the impact of the imposition of what was put on us and actually what was ours. So that then that can then take us back to this chapter 4. So thank you very much, comrades, and let's meet again next Sunday. I always share the recording of these sessions on our YouTube channel, and I will say that this class is one of the worst performing video recordings that we always have. Some of the videos that we recorded, I've never had even one viewer for the last 1 week. Of course, most of our recordings are not for the purpose of maybe attracting attention per se, because to us it's just a store of knowledge we are discussing. But I will request that once we have this recording ready, when I share them sometimes on our broadcast list, please feel free to also share them so that other members can also join the conversation, even if they are not here with us, and they can be inspired to join us as well. So, asanteni sana. May you have a
Please, the title
of
the book.
It's called Defeating Dictator. I have a
Okay,
copy. Can I send you a copy?
Yes, maybe I'll have, but I have to search because I have a lot of them downloaded, but I have to search where.
Where are you? Are you in our channel? Our YouTube, our Pan-African Telegram channel?
No, I'm in the WhatsApp one.
No, kindly move to our Telegram channel.
Okay, please send me a link to this.
If you move to Telegram channel, I'll share it to our WhatsApp one. But if you move to our Telegram channel, the good thing with the Telegram channel is that you don't need to download them. You just go to the channel and just put the title of the book.
Okay.
So it will always give you the book where all the books you want. Even if you put the title of Nkrumah, it will give you all the books of Nkrumah. So you don't need to download. You can read them there. You can just read them without downloading them, or you can do anything else you need.
Okay.
So I'm trying to share with you the link. I think I'll permit me to just post a link here immediately, so that those who want to join can join directly to the Telegram channel. Yeah, as we are leaving, let me just put the link in the chat. So those who are not yet part of the channel, just join the channel using the link. I'll put the link in the chat. So maybe a minute before we close, feel free to join our Telegram channel so that you can get all the books we have there.